Last week, Logan Riley and Brandon Mitchell went viral when the gay couple shared a post of the baby boy they had acquired through surrogacy. It has become very common for gay couples to celebrate purchasing children from their mothers on social media, but as the horrific consequences of surrogacy have become more well known, public opposition has become more common. Many on social media raised concerns that the gay adoption was not in the interests of the child, who may experience severe consequences for not being raised by a mother. These entirely reasonable concerns were of course met with the usual accusations of bigotry by gay activists seeking to silence the opposition. The activists who viciously smeared any critics of the gay couple suddenly fell silent when it was revealed that one of the new fathers is a convicted sex offender. The argument for gay adoption was always flimsy. Formative experiences shape a child when they're young, and the dynamic of having both a loving father and mother in the house to provide critical influence from both sexes is key. Initially, it was accepted by gay activists that two males are even more detrimental because they don't provide the feminine, motherly qualities on which infants are so dependent. The pitch for gay adoption was framed more as a last-ditch effort to provide a loving, if suboptimal, home for children who otherwise would be languishing in foster care. This argument was always a Trojan horse, but at least it came with a certain level of humility, recognizing the inherent inferiority of a gay couple as parents. As the LGBTQ movement gained first cultural acceptance and then cultural dominance, the nature of the argument changed. Gay adoption was no longer an inferior solution of last resort, but something that was seen as equal to heterosexual couples adopting. In many cases, adoption agencies began restricting their placements with religious Christians who were labeled as extremists, while preferring homosexual couples who were considered more culturally acceptable. The argument was still that the couple was providing a home for a child in need, but the idea that the quality of the home provided by an LGBTQ couple may be lacking something critical by its very nature had been abolished. Once the equality or even superiority of homosexual couples as adoptive parents had been established as an unassailable dogma, the pretense of adoption could be discarded. Gay couples, who by their very nature can't reproduce, decided that they wanted genetic offspring of their own. The excuse about rescuing abandoned foster children was discarded, and LGBTQ activists made surrogacy their new vehicle for creating an artificial family. Surrogacy was relatively new, and few people understood the process. The public had spent zero time thinking about the moral implications. Gay people were just now parents like everyone else. If surrogacy made that possible, then it was probably a net positive. Surrogacy does technically involve the adoption of a child, but the two practices could not be more morally distinct. Traditional adoption involves taking on responsibility for a child that's not yours because they would otherwise lead a perilous existence, often as a ward of the state. There are still very serious problems with gay adoption, but at least the practice of adoption itself is inherently noble and a fine alternative for heterosexual couples who can't have children. Surrogacy, in contrast, is the intentional creation of a life for the express purpose of ripping it from its mother and selling it to strangers. The process itself is intense, exacting a brutal physical and emotional cost on the mother. The horror stories are also incredibly dark, as children are often custom ordered like designer fashion accessories. Forced abortions, abandoned infants, and extreme emotional trauma are not uncommon. And that is before we even broach the subject of abuse. Unrelated adults present in the home are one of the most common sources of child abuse. One study found that preschool-aged children are 40 times more likely to suffer abuse in a home with a step-parent in comparison with those with two biological parents. There are, of course, many wonderful step-parents out there, but the risks can't be ignored. Adults, especially men, are just far more likely to abuse children to which they are not related. This makes every gay surrogacy case a game of Russian roulette for the child that they've purchased. The fact that we made the purchase of children by gay couples something to be publicly celebrated speaks to what a very dark place we are at as a society. Our culture is now basically built on the idea that the purchasing of slaves was the greatest moral crime in history, but somehow we've also made homosexuality so sacred that it justifies the legal child trafficking we see today. While adoption by a sex offender is banned under Pennsylvania law where the couple lives, there is no similar restriction for surrogacy. The child these men purchased is still in the care of a sex criminal. It's time for conservatives to speak out against and ultimately work to ban this repugnant practice. Surrogacy is an abomination that was snuck in through the back door because most people didn't understand the process or its consequences. I'm sorry, but ignorance is just no longer a justification for our complacency. If the right truly believes in protecting children, it must take action to end this horrific practice. We have to end the creation of human children for the purpose of commerce by both straight and gay couples. Vulnerable children can't be left in the hands of sex offenders just because they have the cultural shield of the LGBTQ identity. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the best time to do so. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, make sure to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform, and when you do, leave a rating or a review. It really helps with the algorithm magic. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, or Gab, or Substack, or Instagram, if you'd like to get these videos on Rumble or Odyssey, the links to do all of that are down below in the description. And don't forget, you can support the show by subscribing to Blaze TV or heading over to shopblazemedia.com, clicking on the Auron MacIntyre collection, and picking up some merch from the channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.